everyone, it is the Video Game Penguin 21, and today we are going to be looking at Harman Smith's latest video. I nearly said a bad word there. Quadrupling down on his points on Starfeild. Now, to be clear here, Starfeild itself is a solid game. I've said this a number of times. It's a solid Bethesda game, and overall, I like it. A lot of people like it. It's got like a 70. It's like an 80 on the Metacritic score. Apparently a 70 on the actual Steam page, which is a little bit more reliable because people have to actually pay for it, and it will say like, oh, the product was refunded and stuff like that in the actual review. So yeah, overall, is the game bad? No, it's not. There's some issues with it. For me personally, the main 3 issues that I have with it right now is that it's locked me out of specific quest lines for some reason. I am unsure as to why or how. It has completely it has had that glitch where the NPCs will like rise up into things like Jesus into the sky. Nearly locked me out of a couple quests there. And overall, it's just not... It does have a loading screen problem. Not that the loading screens are too long, but that there's a lot of them. But again, that's just... Number one, I can chalk up the loading screen thing to it's a Bethesda game. That's just kind of how they operate a lot of the time. And this place is huge. It's massive. There's a lot of different maps and a lot of different places to go. 2, for the glitches and stuff, those can probably be mostly patched out. And 3, for the locking out of the quest things, I could probably just restart and just try a different character out, which is fine. But I don't normally do that, so it's whatever. I normally try to get through all of the content in the first go because I know that I will never redo it, but the locking out of the certain quest lines might actually get me to go back and redo it. So, whatever. In short, Starfeild is a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. Nothing more. I don't know who was overhyping this or anything like that. I don't think even I was. If I was, I'm apologizing for that right now because I don't think that like my updated views on the game are like more middling, and I'm more middling in general. In any case, I should stop rambling because we should get into this Harman Smith video. Let's get started.
It's been, a couple of days now? Is it all right? Is it acceptable to come out and finally admit that Starfeild was not a very good video game? That it's filled with glitches, that the pacing is terrible, the general gameplay loop is terrible, the engine is terrible, the mechanics are terrible, the writing is terrible, the character models are terrible, the visuals are terrible, gunplay, the variety. Like, this is a complete disaster in every way, shape, and form. And as of right now, in spite of a handful of like middling review scores, nobody really wants to admit it. Everybody bent over backwards trying to pretend that Tears of the Kingdom was a disappointment and one of the worst games ever made. But when Starfeild comes out, is objectively a complete disaster, an abject failure in every way, shape, and form. This is a mod of Skyrim, essentially. When this game comes out, it is as underwhelming, as disappointing, and as boring as it is. Why exactly is there not fan outrage? Where exactly is the backlash? Where exactly is the controversy? Why aren't people refunding this game en masse, selling their Xboxes, ending their Xbox Game Pass subscriptions, buying Nintendo Switch, getting away from Bethesda and their nonsense? Because it didn't take a genius to predict that this would happen, right?
Okay. So that's a little bit of a longer clip than I normally do, but I wanted to come in here because overall, I am one of those more middling people that will say, this game is good, but there's some caveats. And it was not a bad thing to come out and say, oh yeah, there's a significant problem with this, so it gets a specific thing. It's the problem being that the controversy surrounding this game is more of just the bad faith arguments that are just all anti-Xbox without even taking into account several different other aspects of the game and people trying to enjoy it. A lot of people, PlayStation fanboys especially, went into this game expecting to hate it and were nitpicky to the point where they actually just had those confirmation biases pretty much full stop. And for someone like you, as well, in the same vein, it happens the same way. If you are looking for problems, problems will find you. If you are looking for bad faith arguments will happen upon you organically. It's just how a lot of the internet and a lot of the world tends to work. When you're looking for something actively in something that you are participating in, you can oftentimes find it nth-fold. But you miss all the other good things that the actual game or entertainment does. Like, it does good. Like, it does great. I'm unsure as to how many people were actually saying that Tears of the Kingdom wasn't bad. Or, I misspoke there. Let me rephrase that. What I mean is, I'm unsure as to how many people there were who actually said that Tears of the Kingdom was an underperformer. Most people that I know about actually have said that it's a good game. It's very good. It's very solid. But overall, no. I don't think this is a mod of Skyrim. I don't think this is that bad of a game. I don't even think that it's a complete disaster. A complete disaster would have been if this game sold very poorly. And people have been refunding the game, too. There's been several people that have done that. So you're not entirely wrong, but you're not entirely correct. There's a lot of nuances, and you don't see nuance at all because you're Harman Smith, and you're a kind of dick weasel.
I told you guys over and over again going into this game isn't going to be that great. It's going to be underwhelming. It's going to have, Todd lied about everything. There were all these red flags, all these situations, all these issues, right? There were all these problems with this game that nobody wanted to talk about or address at all. All anybody wanted to do was just pretend, leading up to release, that this was a Game of the Year contender, that this was going to be a system seller for Xbox, that this was going to be the game that put Bethesda back on the map, that made them great, that really showed Nintendo who's boss, like proved that Bethesda could still put out good, high-quality, open-world RPG content. Like this was going to be the next evolution of that genre. This was going to leave everything else in the dust. Like Bethesda was going to bring forth the next generation in video games, right? This was going to be one of the best games ever made. And what happens? It comes out, nobody cares for it. Everybody's just kind of playing through it because they don't do anything else. They have no hobbies. They have no interests. They don't play better games, there are like dozens of examples this year alone. They don't read. They don't have any like real lives. All they do is just wait for the next major video game announcement, like next video game to come out, and then they'll just play that, in spite of the fact these games have stopped being good.
Oh my god. Harman, you don't get to say shit. Like, at all. You do not get to say fucking anything about anyone or even pull those insults. Why? Because overall, no. Not in the slightest. That is so fucking shallow and... Look, he doesn't get any place to start because, honestly, he looks like he's living in his mom's basement. If this is his house, holy crap, this house is just awful looking. If this is like an apartment that he owns or whatever, it looks terrible. So, Harman, you don't get to sit in this place and be like, oh, they don't have any other hobbies. Your hobby right now is shitting on everything that's not Nintendo. Like, that's your hobby. You don't seem to have a life either. Somehow you have a job, apparently. Unsure as to how. It doesn't feel like you do, especially considering where you live and stuff like that. And is that water damaging your roof? Sorry, I'm just kind of noticing weird things in the screenshot of this thing. But look, video games is people's hobbies. It's my hobby. Like, it's my hobby a lot. And I like to talk about video games. I like to discuss video games. Having a hobby is not the same thing as discussing and talking about certain things. you have no room to talk about that since you are also playing video games. And you can throw up the clip of the pot kettle thing, because I could literally use those exact words back onto you, Mr. Harman Smith. But just because you like Nintendo. Like, it's the same argument, just different sides. Stupid.
Good a long time ago, right? Like there is no defending the decline in quality from Bethesda, but nobody wants to admit it. You know, like how exactly can a company put out something as broken and as unfinished as Fallout 4 and seriously not have people just stop supporting the company? Like, why was that not like the moment that people realized that like Bethesda had jumped the shark? You know, Fallout 4, or for that matter, Fallout 3, which in and of itself was not disappointing. Like, I remember when people said Fallout 3 was like one of the best games ever made, right? Like, unlike Starfield, that game did get the critical acclaim. It did get the sales. It did get the hype cycle, right? That game was a major milestone for downplaying Nintendo Wii games around that time, right? Right. That was a big.
Whoa. Oh, Jesus H. Tap dancing. Christ, it always comes back to Nintendo. Why? This is why I don't like covering this man, because his all of his arguments like circle back around to Nintendo being the same way. Like I can't with this guy sometimes. It's just like I want to throw this microphone halfway across the room, but I probably lose it in my room. But look, like you're saying like, oh, Fallout 3 was bad. I mean, I can agree with you. Fallout 4 was a definite step down from like Fallout New Vegas or something like that. Absolutely. But if you had said Fallout 76, you would have had a stronger argument, in my personal opinion. If people would look at that game and say, oh, like that game was actually not that bad, it's like, it's not that bad now. It was terrible on its release. It was absolutely gross and disgusting, and had like people who were finding things had like 3 to 4 like movie level of amount of clips of people finding bugs and glitches and stuff like that. So yeah, no, ambitious is an understatement for that. And quite honestly, this is actually a step up from Fallout 76. And they're back to their more original stuff, which I can really only ask for Bethesda to give me that right now, because it at least for this game, this is more of a transitional game. At least I'm hoping it is. If it's not, I will eat those words, absolutely. But to be fair, like, it's better than Fallout 76. It's better than some of their other games. Like, definitely not better than Oblivion. Definitely, in my opinion, at least on some levels, okay in Skyrim. Maybe not like the same level of content or the same level of anything, but again, it's just been released. So I don't really know what to talk about here. Look, overall, Harman, it like the fact that you're saying like, oh, it's the downplay of Nintendo from the Fallout 3 era. That's not what people were talking about. Jesus Christ.
Thing at the time, right? You know, alongside like BioShock and Mass Effect and stuff like that. Like that was one of those games, Oblivion. Like that was one of those games that like everybody said was like, wow, Nintendo could never put out something like this. Nintendo is doomed for sure. Like, look at these open environments with nothing to do. Oh, I'll never get tired of walking the Capital Wasteland. Like, and like, what happened? People did get tired of it. You know, people did realize that Fallout 3 had problems. People did realize that Bethesda had completely screwed the pooch, right? And nobody really wants to admit it. Like, nobody wants to admit that there are better games out there from better developers, Japanese developers. Like, nobody wants to admit that there's a serious problem with the gaming industry, with like the hype cycle, and with the tradition. Like Starfield came out this week. Like, what did I do instead? You know, I was doing stuff. You know, I was writing. I was reading One Piece. I was playing Advance Wars, Hollow Knight, um, countless other games. You know, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, which is still better than anything Bethesda ever put out. Like, I was playing real stuff. You know, real high quality product. Like far beyond anything that non
Are
Nintendo.
you fucking me in the ass right now? Well, I will say that Ocarina of Time is an absolute staple, and like I will never shit on that game because that game is actually really good. Like, full stop, full like transparency here. Like that's a good Nintendo game. It's what do you want from me? It's a good one. It's really solid. But to come out here and say that it's like better than anything Bethesda ever put out, I take a little bit of a like, I don't think that that's true, Chief. I will say mechanically it's really complex and mechanically it's really good for the time. But there have been and there will be better games after it. That's not a dig at the game. That's not to say that the game's bad. It's good. Like, good games, good media, good shows, good anything can stand the test of time. For example, a lot of, like, headphones. As just a random example. Certain headphones that are, like, super high-end, super expensive can last you for decades. Not years, decades. Like, some headphones from the 80s and 90s are still solid today. Some of them, not a lot of them. But again, like, it always again comes back to Nintendo, where it's like, oh, no, Nintendo couldn't put out anything with this. If you're seeing these arguments, don't you think that says more about the algorithms that you are following and the people that you are interacting with on, say, the internet and stuff, and less about the actual overall, like, arguments and stuff like that? Like, isn't that like weird to me? Am I crazy? Am I taking crazy pills right now?
Gamers have ever played. And it's just like, why exactly do we have to do this every time? Like, why exactly do I have to tell you that, like, Starfield isn't going to be good, and then, like, have my opinion be validated, and then, like, have everyone just move on to the next thing? And that is what's happening right now, is that, like, all anybody's doing is getting excited for the next thing. And right now, I don't think there's really anything this year that, like, people can fall back on. Like, I think what people are going to do this year is, like, pretend that they're just going to, like, replay Baldur's Gate 3 over and over and over again, and, like, yeah, get to, like, every possible, like, sexual degenerate, like, situation they possibly can. Like, they're going to do everything they can to try and, like, ignore the obvious, that, like, starting in October, like, it's going to be a nonstop barrage of great Nintendo Switch games. You know, you have Detective Pikachu, you have Super Mario Bros. Wonder, you have, you know, Metal Gear Solid Master Collection, you have, like, Super Mario RPG, you have, like, so many cool things. Dragon Quest Monsters is coming out in December. Another Dragon Quest game is coming out in September. Like, you have, like, a lot of great upcoming games. Like, you know, I should have had to stop, like, you know, cancel a lot of my pre-orders for stuff I didn't think I was all that interested in. You know, stuff like Mortal Kombat 1 and
Oh, Harman. Oh, Harman. See, this is again, I think I'm going to tap out of this one. Quite honestly, I didn't want to do, like, more than a 10 to 15 minute video on this guy, because he doesn't deserve it. He doesn't really. But I'm like 7 minutes in, and he's probably just going to continue to repeat his points here from that. But here is what I'm going to end on right now. If you expand your horizons, or are at least willing to respect someone else who has a much broader sense of anything, really, I think that a lot of people can get along with it. Like, it's not hard, per se, to look at someone and say, I respect your opinion, but I respectfully disagree with your opinion. Like, I do that all the time. That's what this channel is built on. Respectfully disagreeing with someone. Like, I'll make fun of you. I will 100% dog on you and make jokes at your expense. That is what happens when you sign up to watch this channel. Full stop, if you have stupid and terrible opinions. Absolutely. But I will not attack you as a person. I really won't. Because, again, the thing is, I respect people who have different opinions. One of my best friends, one of my current best friends, I disagree with them on a lot of hot button issues. A lot of them. Like, and it's not the end of the world. Like, I can respectfully disagree with them, but I will distinctly defend my specific point and try to make them understand where I'm coming from. And they said, oh, well, that'll lead you to right-wing politics and stuff like that, and I don't want to get political and stuff like that, so we're going to move past that. But at the end of the day, I like differing opinions because I like keeping them around, and I know that that sounds really weird, but I like having them around me because they ground me. They really do. The people, like, I think that George Washington, just to use, again, another really random example from history, again, George Washington had a good idea when it came to his cabinet. His cabinet was like small people, but people who are influential and people with different opinions than him. Like, so many different opinions and different sorts of, like, designations as to what they do and how they do it. It overall is important to have those differing opinions, which is what we tend to lack today. And I think that that Harman Smith is a great example of those kinds of echo chambers, and which is why I continue to cover this man. That and he also provides easy and good content for, well, not easy, well, not good content, but easy content for me to review. Anyway, I think I've rambled on enough about that. Any fun? Anyway, if you like what it is that I do, and you want to support me monetarily or anything like that, don't worry. It's a completely optional, and your viewership is more than enough. If you want to support me, though, links down in the description to the Patreon, the Gumroad, to the thing. If I do stream on Twitch, mostly on weekends, Thursdays through Sundays, sometimes even Mondays. Make sure you check the community tab. I try to keep it up to date. There are some times when I just can't. But again, follow the Twitch down in the description. I am probably doing something this weekend again. I really do try to keep up, but it's like hard sometimes because I continue to forget. But again, follow me on the Twitch, follow me on the stuff. And again, I love your viewership is enough for me. In any case, my name is GamePenguin21. Harman, you are always welcome and have a seat at the round table of idiots and a piece